This conference will now be recorded.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order.
Pam, you sound like you're
Yeah.
cutting out.
Yeah, it's cell service. This is the best I can get here. And I've lost internet connection several times this morning as well, so it may be a bit challenging. Sorry. So I guess we don't need any introductions. We all know each other. And we have no meeting summaries to review. No members of the public. So, Gail, shall we jump right into the review of the third draft?
Yep. So this is your final meeting as the Planning Area Committee. So this will be your last look at both the Seaside Rural Draft and the Elsie-Jewell Draft. And I've got Word versions of each open so we can go through and make any edits that might be needed. And then when we get to the end of one plan, we'll need a motion and a second about whether or not to approve it as amended. And then we'll send it forward to the board for an initial review before it goes to the Planning Commission. But I'll summarize that again at the end. But that's really our agenda for today.
Okay. Which one are we starting?
We've got Seaside Rural first on the agenda, so let's start with that one.
All right. Okay.
Can I ask you a question, Gail?
Sure.
We've been working on these particular issues for months now, and yet there's a lot more goals that we've never fine-tuned at all. I'm very confused.
Okay, so we've made a lot of shifts as we've worked through this process. And so when the board took its pause back in April of this year, and then we restructured how the schedule would be going forward, the planning area groups are only focused now since the end of July, beginning of August, on updating their specific community plans. And the role of looking at each of the goals in the bigger comp plan has been transferred to the countywide Citizen Advisory Committee and to the Planning Commission. So the planning area CACs, you, Susanna, or Pam, will still continue as a liaison to the countywide, and you'll still keep looking at those goals that are in the main comprehensive plan. But the work of this specific committee, which is now just to look at the Elsie-Jewell plan and the Seaside Rural plan, today concludes your work on that portion of the project. Does that help to answer your question, Susanna?
Yes, I feel cross-eyed. We've gone over these things so many times, and yet we're not doing all the others. It's very frustrating, I think, but go ahead. Go ahead,
Okay.
Pam, and try to.
So Gail, do you want to lead this part about reviewing the Seaside Rural, or?
Yeah, so really, the staff had provided you with 2 drafts of each plan, one that was in a strike-through underlined format that highlighted all the new changes that we did at our last meeting. Those are highlighted in yellow. And then there are things that are highlighted in gray that are things that we previously discussed and revised, but which we've already agreed to. So at this point, I think I need some feedback on the items that are in yellow, and also any corrections, additions, or deletions we want to make at this point, because this will be our last look at this.
Right. Okay. Susanna, anything at the beginning Yeah, figure one, that was highlighted, and I think we discussed this at length with the different landforms.
Yes. I, I just did my usual. I took some notes, and as for the geology, there's only one thing to have anything to do with the landscape units, and that was about mining and gravel. And the rest of it, I'm not that familiar with seaside rural, the geology or anything.
Okay. So Gail, the next highlighted, or the next yellow part is under natural hazards. We have stream flooding and other hazards. I don't know what the change was there. Did we just add stream flooding?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So just so I understanding here. Okay. All right, that's fine.
And the FEMA insurance mapping program she has up there, Pam.
Is that map 3, Gail? Is that considered map 3?
Yes, that would be map 3.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
The one trouble I had with the maps is that all the icons on the left side, it's all so small. I found very hard to read.
Yeah, we're still working with our GIS people to make the maps a little more refined so we can fix that legend area.
Hey, Suzanne, I know you had some concern about the mining. So now if we scroll down to that yellow highlight area, natural resources. Are you okay?
Yes, that was under page 11.
Yeah.
They said, I don't know the seaside rural. I believe what Tom Horning, the geologist, once said, that the sand and gravel are, well, I mean, sand is used differently than gravel probably, and the gravel is not hard gravel good for crushed rocks on roads and things. And I know that the gravel pits, I should not say that I know this because I don't. I know some of them, they just blast out. The ones I do know about blast out I'm assuming the basalt, and crush it. For the gravel pits for, rocking roads and things. And they
Right.
say this, that the two most common mineral resources are sand and gravel and crushed rock deposits. And I would just emphasize that the gravel is from the crushed rocks because it's what's used, I believe, and then we really don't want sand and gravel being taken out of streams. It might be just being a fuss budget. I don't know.
Well, I think, and Gail, if I'm wrong, that any gravel extraction in a waterway would be either ODF, ODFW, or DSL. Would those things wouldn't be under our jurisdiction, would they?
No, they wouldn't. But I do believe that we have either some discussion or policy somewhere in the comp plan. This has come up before, and we do note that gravel should not be removed from waterways.
Okay, good. Thank you for bringing that.
So is it, and would the saying the most common mineral resources, should that be reworded? Because if we're not supposed to be taking it out, anyway, it's probably all covered.
I think it's covered with other agencies and rules.
Yeah.
I'm fine with the way it is.
Yeah. Okay. Is that okay that we just have a consensus, Gail?
Yeah.
Okay. Just leave it.
Sorry for the long silence here. I'm just kind of reading through this, scrolling through it as we go, and I'm down to the Canon Beach Watershed and the yellow additions or changes, yellow highlighted, and I'm fine with all of that. Are you okay with that, Susanna?
I realized that I did not, it goes into a lot about Canon Beach, but the Seaside, the city of Seaside water would be coming from a watershed that's on Seaside Rural. Would it not be, Gail? And is it mentioned in here, the Seaside, the source waters of the Seaside Reservoir?
I think we may have a little, let me pause. I think we have something in the discussion about Seaside's water. Hold on here. Oops, that's not what I want to do. The information on Canon Beach came directly from the city of Canon Beach. But let me see what we put in about Seaside.
And Seaside Reservoir, is that city of Seaside, is that urban growth boundary?
I think that their reservoir is outside the boundary. I'd have to double check. Let's see.
And if so, I think that should be notated.
All right, so on page 20, well, my version might be a little bit different. Hold on here. Yeah, page 24 of the plan. We do talk about Seaside water.
Well, the groundwater wells is because the residences in Seaside Rural, I'm assuming all have wells or groundwater catchment, correct?
In Seaside Rural, right. Yeah, and then if you go up a page to page 23, this is where we talk about City of Seaside water. There aren't actually any water districts within the planning area, but it does talk about, we added language about City of Seaside and their
Yeah, I
water
see that.
system.
That's wastewater that's up on the screen.
No, this is the water district. Oh, that is wastewater, you're right.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
On I guess speaking for Fish and Wildlife, I we're mostly concerned with the severe drawdown on the Nicanicum from the water drawdown during the summertime, and it really impacts the middle and lower Nicanicum River. Uh, is there still in our plan a system where they they build up during high water periods a impoundment or catch, or a not a catch but a water tanks or water reserve storage system where they can keep the water and use that water during the summer period to prevent the severe drawdown on the middle and lower Nicanicum River?
I don't think that we have anything like that in our plan. So
And,
these,
and,
go
and
ahead.
who's drawing down the water? Who's taking the
The
water out?
city of Seaside combined with anything else that's connected there in rural.
Because I thought the city of Seaside came out of, is it Bierman Creek? I should know, but I don't.
No, there's a South Fork Reservoir. South Fork of the Nicanicum River has a dam on there, and it that's in rural, and it draws down significant, no, a great amount of water from the South Fork that really impacts the fish that are in the middle and lower portions, all the way down to Circle Creek, outside of the city, that impacts the fish that drawdown does during the summertime.
Okay, so what I just put up here, I apologize, you're right, Suzanne, I put the wastewater under the water. But we do have, we had this discussion in Clatsop Plains, and we can copy and paste this into the Seaside Rural Plan. But it does talk about, their main water source for the city of Seaside is the South Fork of the Nicanicum River, and it's about 8 miles southeast of the city. And then they just completed work, I believe, on that new reservoir, which they just finished just a few, maybe in January, I think. Yeah, 5 million gallon reservoir in January. So if you want, I can copy and paste this into the plan.
Yes, I think that's very important that it be in here. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean,
Thanks.
this is our area, right? Seaside Rural?
Yep.
That
So
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for catching that.
Is that me?
No, that's good. Oh, thank you for putting that in there.
No, thank you for catching it.
And should I go on about just other things that I've caught? Or do we review the whole thing?
I mean, if you have specific items that you want to point out right away, yeah, please do that.
Well, as we're
I
scrolling,
do.
because I didn't see, we worked so hard on the wording and with Don about the Native American discovery of any Native American sites and protocol. And I didn't catch that in here.
Yeah, that's something that I wanted to bring up specifically because I did for Chinook Indian Nation did bring up that concern, and yeah, I didn't see or we didn't see any written policy for inadvertent discoveries of indigenous artifacts and human remains prior to or during any development that could occur there or will occur in Seaside Rural, as well as Jewell and Elsie. This concern would be mostly near waterways that were utilized for gathering and processing fish, game, and plants and vegetables, and a lot of these would be, most especially in Seaside Rural, would be sites that were like transient sites, established trails that would have kerns on them, marking, a significant area that was revisited, and in any event, these temporary gathering sites most likely were not like villages, but were just put up so that our people could take advantage of what was available during each and every season. And if kerns are located, they could also establish or point out where demise of some of our people were buried. And like under NAGPRA, Chinook Indian Nation must be informed of any inadvertent discoveries of our people and any of their artifacts, and most especially if they come across an established kern. I really believe that, speaking for the Chinook Culture Committee and members of the Chinook Council, that we need to have some kind of wording in there for our Clatsop Chinook people that utilize that. And I know we have records of people from Indian Place that have traveled the extensive route of the Nicanicum and its tributaries to extract or harvest fish, game, and vegetation.
Don, can you see? She has wording up there. Did you have this all along and I didn't see it, Gail?
Yeah, it's on page 19 of the strike through underline format.
And then,
Oh, that's probably why I didn't see it.
Yeah, but you're correct, Don. We didn't get a specific policy in there. So what I would propose is we take this last sentence, information regarding inadvertent discoveries of human remains, village sites, and encampments should be reported to the Chinook Indian Nation and the State Historic Preservation Office, and make that a policy.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, and could it also be to other interested parties or something?
Mm,
People reach
No,
out.
I have to strenuously object to that. That would invite other tribes to try and establish uh, their footprint in land that is sovereign to Clatsop Chinook. Well, we've already had this discussion with the problem that we've gotten from Siletz, the Cowleets people, and even north the Quinault from the north. And it's been a contentious situation, and to have that to invite that into our plan only exasperates the tenuous situation that the Archinookan people already face. We don't want to make that a a a, uh, a partisan problem. It just we can't have it.
Actually, I was thinking that also you wouldn't want groups that might get some private gain out of going through sites or something, but
Oh well, how do you
that's
stop development?
we do have a lot to cover today. So if this is okay, then with everybody.
I think the way you worded it, I think the wording is good, and if you're okay with that, I'm ready to just accept that and move on.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I kind of lost it. Do you have other things specifically, or should we go back and go in order? Gail, what works best for you?
If Susanna doesn't have any more corrections, we can go back and just go in order through the yellow highlighted areas.
Well, I think
Okay. Go ahead, Susanna.
the only other comment I had was the highway data by year does not reflect at all, I think, what goes on under transportation. What I would like to see is data for the high numbers of people moving on the roads for summertime, the high and the low throughout the year.
Okay, when I looked at ODOT's website, Susanna, I wasn't able to find that information. They've got their traffic counts. They do an average annual traffic count, but I couldn't find a high-low. It may be there, but I don't know where it is.
Well, who knows about, I mean, the one thing is to maybe reach out to ODOT and find out the they should have the dates of the traffic counts, which should be in their information, and just to ask ODOT maybe for that they have the timing of the traffic counts.
Okay, hold on. I want to find a place to make a note about that.
Because one always has to be very careful on the strip of 26 from Highway 103 east to just east of the Elderberry Inn area. And in the summertime, you have to be totally on your toes through that area. It is so congested, and I don't know how people walk across the highway to get to the store. But I know that there are people that don't drive that go to the store all the time. And then there's, I think I counted 30 mailboxes that are on a strip below the fire department where I'm assuming people that don't drive walk to that.
All right, hold on. I'm still trying to find. I thought I had a table in here. Now I can't find the table.
Yeah, you have a table, but it's pretty obvious, I think. So while you're scrolling, do
Sorry,
we have,
I'm making everybody dizzy.
what?
I hope I'm not making everybody dizzy.
Oh, no, that's fine with me. Is this all repeated in more of a final draft form? It seemed like everything got repeated.
What do you mean repeated?
Well, we have all of this that's in the gray and the yellow, and then you have, I thought it was repeated.
Well,
I've had,
we gave you two versions of the document. We gave you one that was marked up, so that showed all the changes to date and new stuff that had been included since your November meeting. And then we gave you one that was final, cleaned up, that reflected all the changes, but didn't have the markups.
right, okay. That's what I meant by repeated. Okay, good. It's not just me getting cross-eyed. Okay. You know, when you scroll down, Gail, we'll get to the highway stuff. You know, if you just want to go through
Yeah,
all of,
I made a note, so we can
yeah,
move on.
yeah.
Okay, so
So go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, so in terms of changes, does anybody have any comments about the changes we made to the intro, the table of contents, the cover, anything like that? We'll start with that section first.
I didn't even look
It all
at
looks
it.
good to me.
Okay.
I guess it's fine. I didn't even really scrutinize that.
Yeah. Okay. So then the next highlighted area, and we're still working with, like I said, our GIS people to digitize these maps and refine them. Does anybody have any comments on the general landscape units diagram that was included?
No,
That was
I have
all good.
a question. Have you asked Tom Horning, who lives in Seaside, about, and a geologist, about the statements on this report, or Dogami?
We have not, but we did put language in, I don't know if it was in a policy or in the narrative, that said these needed to be verified.
Oh, okay.
I mean, they were done professionally when they were done in 1979. And I wouldn't imagine that the foothills have changed or moved, or the highlands or the terraces.
Well, but just for one little thing, they drilled for natural gas on my property and hit volcanics at 20 feet. So the whole geology report was, I can tell you the history, but you don't need to know it, but it was so inaccurate. They would never have drilled if they knew they would go down through 3,000 feet of volcanics before they quit.
Okay, so are you asking for staff to
Well, if it
have
says
the report redone before we finalize this plan,
well, as
or
long as there's a note that it needs to be verified, I forgot your wording, but as long as that's in there, then it can be looked at again. Some other time.
would it be helpful, because pretty broad overview, Susanna, would it make you feel better or make us all feel better if we put some language in there such as this is a broad overview and any more details would be conducted at a site-specific evaluation? I know I'm not saying that very well, but just acknowledging that's a broad overview and that it doesn't necessarily give detail to each site.
What do you think, Gail?
I think we can note that. I'm a little concerned about having a site-specific study done. Is that something you would want the county to do every time we have a development application, or is it something we want the property owner to do? And and here's the other concern I have. So in 1979, when we created these studies and looked at these, and then we've based generally our land use designations on that. If we require a site-specific study to be done in conjunction with development, and it comes back, say in the case of Susanna's property, that it's not what it is and it's something else, I'm concerned then that any development on there may not be consistent with the comprehensive plan. So if you're in an area, and I'm going to make stuff up, but if it says you're in a basaltic highland and that should be reserved for natural resources and timber harvest, but your soil comes back and it says you're actually marine terrace, and I'm being extreme here, and we've, based on those types of definitions, we've created zoning designations and land use designations. I think it leads to a lot of confusion. I think if we want to, we've got a statement in here that these are based in 1980, whatever, and we can put in a sentence that says these should be re-reviewed. I thought I had put that in there, but apparently not. Then I think that's fine. But I would be very concerned about saying that we would have some sort of site-specific analysis done in the future.
And perhaps
I agree. That's the burden to do site specific.
Yeah, to re-review it. And I might make a few comments when we get to the Elsie-Jewell area, because it does make a difference partially on water sources, well drilling. There were some other things too that in the Elsie-Jewell. Of course, I didn't take a note on that exactly where it is.
Sure, we can talk about that when we're down to that plan. So are we back down to the water district scale?
No, she's typing in the review, right. Dogami reviewing. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I added a sentence, Pam and Don, in case you can't see my screen, at the end of the introductory paragraph on landscape units, which is on page 1 of the plan, that says these designations and locations, which were completed in the late, or maybe we'll change that, were identified in the late 1970s, should be reviewed by Dogami to verify the locations. The other thing to keep in mind is that this generalized map that was done in the 70s is just that. It is not parcel by parcel identification. So it's a generalized concept based on technology from 1979 that we're looking at. So I don't want us to become too in the weeds that this parcel here is incorrectly classified. I think that will lead us down a path of extreme frustration, and we will never complete this process. So,
and I think it's probably pretty accurate about seaside rural, because somewhere in landscape units, I think that you said that other than, is it the alluvial plain, is in forestry. Marine terrace, alluvial lowlands. And I think that's accurate for the seaside rural. And I don't know where it says that, but I think that's good.
Okay, so did we have other comments on the landscape unit section?
For just seaside rural, right?
Right, we're only doing seaside rural right now.
Yep. I'm good.
No, I think there.
Okay, then our next section is going to be the natural hazards section. And did anyone have any comments about the natural hazards section?
No.
I don't feel qualified to comment, really.
Okay,
I
Don, did
think
you have any
you-
comments on that section?
I mean, you do comment on Highway 101. It still floods south of Seaside. Well, no, well, that's probably urban or I don't know, the campground flooding.
Yeah, so the campground Circle Creek is actually in Seaside now.
Urban
Right.
growth.
Berman Creek, that's in Seaside or is that rural?
No, Beerman to be outside.
Because that's right on the edge there of Circle Creek, isn't it? I believe. And that's also part of
Yes.
that flooding problem there on Highway 101 at Beerman Creek. I don't know if ODOT's going to ever address that.
They did make it much, much better.
Okay, so I'm pulling up Beerman Creek here. Bear with me for a sec.
You mind if I talk when you're doing this?
No, go ahead.
So I didn't, because I thought maybe we would continue on at a later date on more on hazards and earthquake hazards, but when there's the Cascadia subduction zone earthquake, there will be, at this point in time, I don't know how much subsidence. It doesn't make any difference because the subsidence in Seaside will put any low-lying areas underwater at high tide, at every high tide. And I don't know how important it is to, I don't know if it's in there or not.
Okay, let's finish up this first so that we're not all
Yeah.
over here. So let's go back. So this is the map. So the campground itself, this is Beerman Creek Road, and then over here is the campground. And I think that it is actually not in your planning area. It's in the Clatsop Plains planning area, which is why I didn't put it into your plan. I mean, the upper portion of Beerman Creek is in Seaside Rural, but where it hits the highway and is causing the flooding problems is actually in the Clatsop Plains planning area.
To me, that's a little crazy. So the purple is indicating.
Purple is City of Seaside.
Oh, okay.
The orange is Clatsop Plains, and the green is Seaside Rural. Okay, so does the committee want to address the flooding at Highway 101 even though it's not in your planning area?
But it has been addressed I didn't pay attention to that in the Clatsop Plains. Was it addressed there already?
I'd have to go back and look, Don, because at this point they're all kind of blurring together in my head.
No, I'm sorry.
No, it's not your fault.
But on the county-wide meeting, will that we be covering this?
As part of Goal 7, yes, but not specifically in relationship to Seaside Rural.
Right, but I mean the Clatsop Plains group, I'll try to remember, I'll make a note, I'll try to remember, or Pam, whoever one of us is at the meeting to make a note on that.
And Don, to go back to your question, I just did a search on the Clatsop Plains for Bierman, and that does not come up at that in their plan.
Wow. That flooding is always going to be a concern. Safety hazards and all that with the traffic that goes through there. It really needs to be addressed. Maybe a revisit to that.
Yeah, so what we would do then is when we go for our initial discussion with the board, where they're not making any decisions at their February 2nd work session, staff can point out when they look at the Clatsop Plains plan that issue needs to be added into that, just so we know, and then we'll insert that before it goes to the Planning Commission for an actual recommendation.
Okay. Thank you.
Nope, you're welcome. Thanks for pointing that out.
And I do think the whole tsunami, I mean, the earthquake, cascading subduction, earthquake, subsidence, tsunami should be notated under natural hazards if it's not in there.
Hold on 1 minute, Susanna. To Clatsop Plains, CAC plan. Okay. All right. So and you're under the tsunami section, is that correct?
No, oh, no, you have natural hazards up there?
Yes.
Stream flooding?
Yes.
I don't know where you would put in the natural hazard, where you would have the tsunami hazards. Because the tsunami maps should be referenced probably. Because Dogami has put a lot of, they have a lot of natural hazards map, I think also for landslide issues as well as, I mean, earth movement issues as well as all the earthquake tsunami maps. And if it's not referenced in here, I think it should be referenced.
Okay. So when you say reference, what are
That
we
there's
doing?
the resource of Dogami of those maps. Generally, do you get them in your email when they do a new mapping area?
Not that I am aware of, no.
So I don't know. They often go into my email box. Do you want me just to forward you what I have?
Well, we need to, I need to know what we want to do here. So first of all, let me find the inundation layer. Okay, so there is a tiny portion that will end up in that's part of the regulatory line. That's in the Seaside Rural District. It's just to the east of Cannon Beach city limits.
Okay. And the
Okay.
northern piece that you had, but it went away, is that in the Clatsop Plains?
Yeah, this is all Clatsop Plains, Northeast, Lewis and Clark. So Seaside Rural is a green area.
Right. So the
So the only piece really is down here to the east of Cannon Beach.
okay.
All right. So for that area down there, what do you want us to say here?
I think probably just to refer to maybe to the Dogami maps.
Suzanne, are you talking about tsunamis or everything that would come with the Cascadia subduction zone earthquake, like mass movement, bridge failure, road failure, utility failure, tsunami?
Well, for Seaside Rural, I'm thinking that it's mostly tsunami. There's a lot about the impact when the zone finally releases, and I don't know. I think it's just, oh, Gail is typing.
Okay, I'll wait and hear what that says. Because if Cascadia goes, there's going to be, of course, a tsunami, but there will be other impacts with our waterlogged soil and infrastructure failure. And certainly inability for transport or emergency services to reach people, because so many of our roads would collapse or be blocked by landslides. Transportation would basically be almost impossible.
Now, I would hope that at some time, let me back up. At one point, decades ago, there was my understanding is a proposed evacuation route out of Seaside further east through the highland areas, meeting up with Highway 26. And I would hopefully I'm sorry, I'm distracted by what Gail has in here, but I would hope that eventually there would be a tsunami evacuation route that is through Highland, not through all that area that is so low. And that evacuation route would be going through Seaside Rural.
Susanna, do you mean like actually build something or just have a place, have something on a map?
Oh, when I study, it's all through probably Greenwood Industries now, whoever owns all that. Stimson owns land up in there, or Lewis and Clark Management Company. it would be through their land, and then it would come out into Highway 26 east. But it's very hilly. The drainage is going through that. To me, when I've studied topography in there, it doesn't seem like there's a simple, easy solution. You know, Astoria is area, they're working on something which I've studied, which is far more easily dealt with than this for Seaside Rural. I just think it might be good to mention because we're going to be going out 20 years, and I would hope in 20 years something will have been worked on, agreements with those forestry companies, something is done. Right now, the city of Seaside needs, of course, to deal with all their bridges and things. Seaside is just to me, a disaster area, but it's not our little committee's worry.
Okay, so the language I put in under, I created a new category for tsunami. A couple of brief introductory sentences. Tsunamis have historically been rare in Oregon. Since 1812, Oregon has experienced about a dozen tsunamis with wave heights greater than 3 feet. Some of these were destructive. A small area to the east of the city limits of Cannon Beach is located within the tsunami regulatory line. Dogami provides maps detailing the inundation zones. Tsunami impacts in this area will likely destroy roads and structures and isolate this area for days or weeks. An evacuation route should be located within the Seaside Rural Planning Area.
That's excellent. Thank you.
Yes. But then you use that word should be located. I don't know. You're the planner. Do you want should in there?
You, as the committee, are making your recommendations. So if you wanted to say shall, I mean.
Oh, no, could. I would say could. An evacuation route could be located.
Okay.
What do you think?
I like should, but I
Okay.
like should. That's a little stronger. It doesn't mean we have to do it, but I think it's a little stronger. But I don't want to get wordsmithing. I had hoped to move to Elsie-Jewell plan by 11. So what else do you have on here, Susanna, on Seaside Rural?
I don't think I have anything else.
Okay.
Okay, I just want to make, let's see. So I want to take our last sentence here that we just talked about, the could should sentence, and I do want to, I'm going to add that as a policy, if everybody is okay with that.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I'm okay with it.
Yes.
One
Okay.
comment, you can refer to the tsunami since 18 whenever, but it doesn't reference a Cascadia subduction zone that we're in the window of release.
I'm not sure I'm understanding what you're saying, Susanna.
Well, when you study the release cycles, the subduction zone is due for a release, but it's complicated. The Gorda plate for sure, maybe sectionally, zonally, and the whole zone, maybe not, but still, even the Gorda plate would have repercussions up this far north, I think.
I think in the interest of this being kind of a broad, overarching plan, that we don't try and narrow it down or limit any of our language to any particular plate boundary or fault zone.
Right. Yeah.
You know, the consequences of any earthquake or tsunami will be, I won't say the same, but I just don't think we should get into the weeds that far. We'll acknowledge tsunami and need for an evacuation route and things like that, without trying to narrow down where that hazard comes from.
Well, no, I think there's the Cascadia subduction zone earthquake and tsunami threat. I would put it threat is very real, and it should be commented on myself. You just
I
passed.
won't argue with that about it, Gail. And Don, is that appropriate to narrow it down to what source of a threat we are most concerned with?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
just don't expound on it too much more. Just Pam, just go ahead and leave it right, just right there. That's fine.
Okay.
all right, so let me put a couple sentences in here about earthquake. So let's see, a Cascadia subduction zone event is the most, do we want to call it destructive, scary, frightening, fear invoking? It's the most,
Likely.
I'm sorry, Pam?
The most likely?
Okay, it's the most likely event to severely impact the seaside rural planning area. And so, and how do we want to address it? Do we want, we talked in the tsunami about having an evacuation route, but what other types of things do we need to do? You know, CERT training for people who live in the area? Do we need to provide cache areas where people can, you know, have their assembly points and things? What do we want to do other than noting it? Or maybe nothing.
Those ideas are good.
Oh,
They're already implemented
are.
in other locations, so I think adding that language isn't going to hurt anything, but we should do that expeditiously.
Okay. All right.
And,
so I'm gonna go ahead.
well, I would assume that the Hamlet Fire Department has considered this and has not maybe policy, but because seaside rural is so spread out, I don't know what to think about seaside rural. But yes, but CERT and the Hamlet, I don't know who covers that seaside rural for such events. Is it just Hamlet Fire Department? Is it Seaside Fire Department? But they have, you know, every year there's shakeout. There's a lot of stuff over planning in response to a Cascadia subduction zone event that goes on every year.
The issue that concerns me the most with all the planning that we can do and have all these people trained, if we can't get from point A to point B because of road failure, landslides, and bridge collapses, to me the most important thing, and I don't know how we put this in the plan, is that each individual household is prepared to be self-sufficient for 2 or 3 weeks. It used to be like 3 days, and that's kind of not realistic in a major event. I know where I live, I am west of the big Nehalem River Bridge, and all of Elsie Vine Maple Fire Department equipment is on the other side of that bridge. So if that bridge fails, nobody's going to get here.
Right.
On the other side of me, that's Hamlet. But again, with bridge failures and road failures, we need to stress that every household has a level of self-sufficiency. That's number one, is to get through that initial week or two. So, Gail, is there a place? I don't even know how to stress that. And this would be also copy and pasted for the Elsie-Jewell plan as well, I think.
Okay. So
And it,
okay, go ahead, Susanna.
well, I was just going to say, Gail just wrote out a thing under earthquakes, Cascadia subduction zone event, but I think it is also true, just as we saw in the '07 storm, where Seaside had no electricity for days, and I don't know in the '96 flood if it impacted Seaside Rural or not. I have no idea. But just the natural events, more than just the subduction zone event. What Pam is talking about is important under.
So something like multiple natural hazards can affect infrastructure within both districts, and each household is encouraged. I don't know how to word that, but to be planned for self-sufficiency for a minimum of 2 weeks. Because you're right, Suzanne, in '96, I couldn't go anywhere for almost 2 weeks, and we didn't have power here for 38 days in '96.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I've created under natural hazards a new section called Earthquake Cascadia Subduction Zone Event. And the text reads, a Cascadia Subduction Zone CSZ event is the most likely event to severely impact the Seaside Rural Planning Area. In the event of a CSZ event, this area would be isolated, or well, I guess we can say will be isolated, as roads and transportation systems will likely be severely damaged or destroyed. CERT volunteer training should be encouraged, and cache areas and assembly points should be identified and developed. The county should promote education to ensure that residents and households are prepared to be self-sufficient for a minimum of 2 weeks in the event of a CSC event, and that's kind of redundant. But that's basically it.
That's good.
Could you?
To not have to read all of this further down, if we're talking about natural hazards, even though the Cascadia event is the most likely, like Susanna said, we could have another 2007 wind event or a '96 flood event. I don't know if we can say that the earthquake is the most likely, including but not limited to that, because there could be other natural hazards. But all the rest of what you put in there would apply to whatever created that isolation and infrastructure failure. Should we just make that kind of an all-inclusive statement?
Yeah, I'm doing that right now. Hold on. All right, sorry, I'm trying to type here. Can leave residents. Okay, so I'm going to create a natural hazards policy section that's just a general policy section. And then under that, policy 1 is going to say the county shall promote education to ensure that residents and households, well, let's just say households, that households are prepared to be self-sufficient for a minimum of 2 weeks, as natural disasters can leave residents in the seaside rural planning area isolated. Is that, then that's just a general, so not tied to any type of specific disaster.
Yeah. Just you have under natural hazards policy dash stream bank erosion. Yeah, just to take that out.
Okay. All right. And I'm
Good. I think
still
that
gonna leave it as a policy under earthquake as well, if that's okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
absolutely. I think we need to stress the hazard, in multiple places. So that's great. And we can copy and paste that one that you just read into Elsie-Jewell as well.
Okay, we can do that. All right. So then, speaking of Elsie-Jewell, and I'm able to stay a little bit after 12 if we run a little bit late, but I just want to see if there's anything else here in the Seaside Rural Plan, excuse me, that we need to address before we move on to Elsie-Jewell.
Not that I have seen. I cannot stay later. Earlier, I was going to say I need to leave by 12:30, but by 11:30, but I've just sent an email. Anyway, I can stay till 12, but not any later.
Okay, so we should probably move on to Elsie-Jewell then. Before we do that, though, I would like a motion and a second to accept the Seaside Rural Plan as amended, unless you're not comfortable with sending it forward.
Yeah, I move that we accept the Seaside Rural Plan as amended.
And by second, all in favor?
I mean, yes.
Done.
Okay. So that is good. All right, so let me pull up Elsie-Jewell here, and thank you. All right. So here's
I like the dual cemetery sign.
I'm a big fan of historic cemeteries, so everywhere I go, I take pictures of them.
I did a trip across doing family history, and we visited many old cemeteries in several Western states, and it was really educational.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so on this one, should we just go through section by section? And let's start with that. So anything in the introduction section? Okay.
Sorry, I had walked away.
I mean, I just one comment on the economic base for employment. Yes, historically in a sense, but it's also kind of a bedroom community in that people go to Seaside and Hillsborough, Forest Grove. I don't know if that's important or not.
All right, so we can just add a sentence, excuse
I
me, at
don't,
the end of that first paragraph that says the planning area also acts as a
I don't know.
bedroom community for, it would be what, the Portland area, Portland metro area?
And Lisa, I mean, actually, I mean, just the coast, for work on the coast or in the greater Portland area. I mean, most of the time it's on the west side of Portland, but
No,
I
that's
don't,
a good observation, Suzanne. I know my office is in Gerhart. And for many years, my husband worked in Astoria. So because we have limited opportunities in the Elsie-Jewell area, I think a majority of our residents commute either to the coastal communities or Portland.
Okay, so I have revised it to add a sentence, the greater, that says many residents within the area commute to employment centers in other areas of the county or to the greater Portland area.
well,
Good, thank you.
yeah, I mean, if you're going to fuss budget, there's also Vernonia and Timber, and I mean, Forest Grove. I don't know if
So
you need to worry
why don't
about
we just say
probably.
why don't we just say in other areas of the county, commute to employment centers in other areas of Clatsop County or to adjacent counties?
Okay.
Okay.
And again, I don't know if this is being nitpicky, but in those few areas out here that have decent internet service, more and more people, and it seems to be a trend, work from home. I don't even know if that's worth putting in here, but it is kind of a changing demographic. And as we get better internet, more people will likely work. Is that worth putting something in there, Gail?
I'm typing it as we speak, Pam.
Okay.
Yes, even before the pandemic, as a landlady and interviewing renters, it has often come up. I don't know with Jewel school broadband efforts if everybody will be able to use it. I would hope so, and that should make a huge difference.
Okay, so I added two more
And
sentences.
several of us have, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Pam.
Oh, more and more people are signing up for which is satellite internet, but it's really changing the internet out here, and people are very happy with it. So, go ahead.
Okay, so I added two more sentences at the end of the first introductory paragraph that says, as internet service improves within the planning area, it is likely that more residents will work remotely. This has and will continue to change the demographics of the Elsie-Jewell planning area.
That's perfectly put.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else in the introduction section?
That I see.
Okay. So then moving on to landscape units.
So I have problems with this, and it makes a difference because what happened in the Jewell area is it was millions of years ago underwater, under the ocean. And so my property, my hillside is 500 feet of marine sediments. And then right through there, there was volcanic flows that are very under the Nehalem ate through down to those volcanic flows. So my field and the riverbank is just all volcanic rock. Underneath the field and along the riverbank is volcanic rock. It's not, that volcanic flow isn't all over the place, but it makes a difference for well drilling. Of course, my place was a railroad camp, I think partially because the ground is very stable. It's just, I just think some of these descriptions are not, under landscape units are not great for the Jewell area. And
The sentence in there, these landscape units situated and updated, if needed, based on input from Dogami, that seems to keep the door open for revision or further study.
yeah, I just saw that. Yes, that would make me happy.
Okay, and that's already
That's a
included.
good sentence. Yes, it is.
And I think that would cover all of my objections, right? That it's just a work in progress.
I think so. Yeah.
I think so. Word. Yeah. Yes.
I mean, I would, right now it's highlighted in yellow. I would like it more dominant. So if anybody else is kind of cruising through this, I think it should be right under the introduction. I think it should be the first thing.
Okay, we can move it. It's highlighted in yellow just because this was new information that was included from our November meeting.
Right.
That's the only,
Yeah, I
but
understand that. Right. So
I
it
mean,
stands out now, but yeah, if you could move it, would be great.
all right. Floppy doodle.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, I think that takes care of all of that. If everybody else is okay with the landscape unit part.
All right.
Well, I mean, the other thing I guess is that you do have on the, I forgot what uplands are for forestry.
Basaltic.
Um, and I mean, when you have volcanics, you know, like my field, it doesn't quite fit, and I'm not sure exactly where the extent of this particular volcanic flow is. I asked Tom Horning one time when he did a presentation on Hug Point, and he was like, oh my, you know, it's just the volcanic flows throughout this whole area, Clatsop County, are so extensive and so many different ones that there was no way that he could address the one I'm talking about. And but then one thing, and it's not right here, but somewhere it's about some of these lands should be for forestry. but I'm not seeing it right here, what's on the screen. But does it make a difference that you say forestry is for basaltic highlands? I mean, forest lands are already very established, right?
They are.
But I didn't take any notes.
I don't know if we're getting in the weeds on that, but something that has been on my mind the last few days, and I don't know if this is appropriate, and I know we're getting low on time. I was reading something, the need for more large solar arrays as we become more and more dependent on electricity for our cars and things. If there were marginal forest lands, such as on slopes, or maybe because of a high volcanic content soil, is it even appropriate to consider addressing that we would allow or consider on non-productive soils conversion to large solar arrays? Or am I just way off base on this scale?
I think the idea is a great idea. What I would need to do is check state statute, because forest and farmlands are both resource zones, and the state statute is what actually spells out those uses that are permitted on farm and forest lands. So I'd need to double check that. I know that the state just did maybe a year or so ago a big amendment to allow big solar arrays on farmland, but I don't think that they've done that for forest lands. But I'd have to double check.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think we can leave that prop state level then. I don't think anything in our plan, if the rules changed on the resource zone at the state level, we as a county would amend our plan to match the state plan, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I think we can leave that alone and not get bogged down in that for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Any other comments on the landscape units before we move on?
I'm good with them.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, I think so.
Okay, so moving on to natural resources. Did anyone have any comments, corrections, deletions for this section?
Just read through it and it looks good. I mean, we can list things forever, but I don't see anything glaringly wrong with it. Is there anything, Susanna, you think that needs to be added?
Well,
or Dawn? I always say Susanna, I mean Dawn too. Sorry.
yeah. Well, this thing about not being suited for development due to floodplain or high groundwater, I would question that statement. It is definitely a big issue, but I would say it's only a small percentage of what is. When I think about, all the hay pasture lands, I mean, I'm kind of aware of who cuts hay where, and it's doesn't fit that description of floodplain or high groundwater. Surely, a fair amount of fields are in the 100-year floodplain, but would I say 50%? No.
Well, so Susanna, with that sentence, it's not saying that the majority or all of the pasture land is in a floodplain, but what it's saying is that the land that's in the floodplain is primarily used for pasture land. So would you disagree with that? Do you think that the lands that are in the floodplain are not being used for pasture land? They're being primarily used for a different reason?
I'm saying that, you know, a lot of the agricultural lands, see, I see it, you're saying most ag lands used for pasture, not suited for development due to floodplain or high groundwater. I don't find that correct. Most agricultural
So
lands
should we,
are used for pasture, yes, but generally not suited for most types of development due to floodplain or high groundwater. That's not accurate. The second half of that
so if
sentence,
we, right. So if we said most of the ag lands are used for pasture and some are not suited for development, or do you just want the rest of that sentence taken out? I'm okay either way.
well, I just think that the first part's accurate, the second half is not. So yes, I would say just delete the second half. Is there a need to have that second half in there, Gail?
No.
Okay.
It is
All right, let's
deleted.
just put the period for pasture. Most
Yep.
of the ag lands are used for pasture, period. Okay.
Got
And
it.
and I would also say for pasture at this time. Used for pasture at this time because we don't know what will happen in the future. I mean, there was mint farming at one time. The whole Jewell Meadows was mint farming, and who knows what might happen.
Okay. I have added at this
So,
time.
okay. All right.
Okay. Other comments, corrections, deletions under this natural resources section?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Let's see. So then we move on to,
Actually, wait a minute. You just had, I just realized I caught something. The major water resources, the Nehalem River, at the, but wait there, stop. Okay, never mind. Go ahead.
okay, so then that brings us to natural hazards. And I know that we were going to be cutting and pasting here. So let me bring that up.
Oh, can I just say one more thing about water, the wells and stuff?
Sure.
That the wells are often have salts in them. Iron, sulfur, is arsenic a salt? So I think sulfur, yes. Iron, no, I don't know about sulfur, iron. Okay.
So do you want me to add a
No,
sentence?
I know I think that's fine.
Okay.
I don't think it makes about testing, that's good.
Okay.
And while we're under water resources, that first paragraph under water resources, the last sentence says most drinking water comes from springs, creeks, and streams. In my experience selling property out here, I wouldn't declare it as most, maybe much of the drinking water, but a lot of people have their own wells. I think it's somewhat reckless to say most drinking water because I bet it's at least equal from wells to springs or creeks.
Okay.
Oh, yes, that part, but I realized I got looking at the, go ahead finishing that.
Okay, so I'll take out the most, the word most, and then so the sentence will read, drinking water comes from wells, springs, creeks, and streams.
Perfect.
But-
Thank you.
And then on the first sentence up there in yellow, just up, you have just actually, where was it? Most water is from the, actually, most residents get water from the, oh, my brain's stopping. You know, like the Elderberry, Nehalem system, the different systems.
Community water systems.
Yes. I think it should be thrown in there about community water systems. Maybe. I
Right,
think
but those
they-
are drawing off of either a spring, a creek, or a stream, aren't they? It's not
yeah,
like the elderberry
yeah,
system magically produces its own water. It's drawing off of something else.
right. Yes. And you do list all the water systems.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think we're okay.
Yep.
Okay. Any other comments or corrections here on the natural resources section?
If you could kind of keep scrolling down. Hold on here. So you have chemical manipulation of insects and vegetation. If you're going to have that, I would have rodenticides accumulating in the food chain affecting raptors. The bird people, the rescue people, are really paranoid about rodenticides because they're really affecting the raptor population. I found 2 dead
So
owls.
it's just not. So it's not just game birds, reduced populations of upland game birds, but it would be reduced bird populations are probably the product of chemical manipulation, insects. So add cumulative impacts of herbicides, rodenticides, pesticides, something like that. Is that what you're getting at, Susanna?
Well, yes. I would say instead of chemical manipulation, just say chemical use for pest control. And pests can be mountain beavers, I would think, right? Because they put use of rodenticides for mountain beavers. Pest. You have post control instead of, there we go, Gail.
Okay, so do you want me to take out the cumulative impacts of herbicides, insecticides, and rodenticides?
That's good.
No, don't do that.
Okay. Okay, so the sentence as revised now reads, reduced population of birds are probably the product of chemical use of pest control, manipulation, cumulative impacts of herbicides, insecticides, and rodenticides, predator increases, and habitat changes.
Oh, that's perfect. That's much more in Q.
Okay.
There's also band-tailed pigeon up there. I notice it's not listed. That's a game bird.
Okay, so it's not necessarily one of the most hunted, but I can note. All right, so after that first sentence done, I'll add in, let's see, other species within the area include band-tailed pigeon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then it says none of the or animals in this area are considered endangered. Go ahead, Susanna.
Well, I think reduced populations of birds, I would say, not to use the word are probably, because I think that there's, the migrations of band-tailed pigeons and swallows, which have been affected. They come from a long way off, and it's not necessarily local problems that are killing them off. Some of them it is, so I would take out probably. Birds are probably the product of chemical use.
Yeah. Do you want me just to say maybe instead of are probably, birds maybe?
Or can be the product.
So how about can be caused by?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. And I'm realizing as I read that we're talking about natural resources, and quite often resources are considered something that you hunt or utilize. And this list are the hunted birds. But so when that sentence that says none of the birds or animals in this area are considered endangered, does that just mean the what are considered game birds? Because we have spotted owl, we have marbled mirlet, and they're either threatened or endangered species.
That's true. I mean, the marbled mirlet would be seaside rural maybe, but the spotted owl, I don't know what its problem.
Mirlets on my property. Oh, marbled mirlets are right out here. They're on my property.
Are they? I only heard, I'm pretty sure what I'm hearing are barred owls. And they eat spotted owls. I mean, of course, spotted owls are just.
Oh, that's not actually. I'm not going to get into the weeds on that, but barred owls are. Barred and spotted are both here. Yeah, I don't think that's that, Gail.
I need to also inject the cultural values that we highly put on our raptors. So in the food chain, if the prey is poisoned, it will kill the predator who is consuming it or will be consuming it. Our greatest concern will be the future of the program of reintroducing our condor, which has been eradicated from the Elsie-Jewell and the seaside rural area. And the condor project is looking forward to working on Saddle Mountain, which encompasses all of that you know, which, I mean, it protrudes above all of that area there. So without being interrupted, I really want to express the Chinook Indian Nation's concern for the safety of our predator birds that we value highly in our culture, beginning with the bald eagle, and then of course all of the falcons, the owl itself, and even the lowly turkey vulture. But we have to look forward to the future of the prospect of having our condor returned.
And, you know, how can we make the paragraph or this section more inclusive to not just what are considered game birds or upland ground birds, but all birds, from the raptors down to the crows and the pileated woodpeckers and everything.
Okay. All right, hold on a sec, sorry. Well, then I would suggest, do we, first of all, just want to, so after ringneck pheasant, we could delete that part. Actually, let's take out that whole first sentence that says ruffed grouse, blue grouse, blah, blah, blah. And where we added other species within the area, let's change that to say the planning area supports a wide variety of bird species. Oops, I guess we already got species in there. Bird species. And then let's say including the band-tailed pigeon and species. There's a word I'm looking for, Don, and help me out. Species that not special, not traditional. What's the word I'm looking for? Honored, not honored.
Culturally significant?
Or species of importance, traditional importance. Let's go
there you
with
go.
that. To the Clatsop Chinook, such as, and I'm sorry, Don, I had to step out for a moment. I came back as you were talking. So could you tell me again what those species were?
Okay, excuse me. Well, we know that there's planning to reintroduce the condor to Saddle Mountain, and boy, do we look forward to that. But it would be all the raptors, the
the bald eagle. Yeah, I did hear that one.
Bald eagle, our falcons, the ospreys, falcons, eagles, ospreys, owls, all the way down to the turkey vulture, which is low on the list, but they're all predators.
Okay.
The reverence is because they perpetuate the circle of life, and without them, there won't be any circle of life, and so therefore, that they hold high reverence. Raven, for instance, the ravens are very important, very, very ceremonially important. of course, the eagles, ospreys, the hawks. We have a variety of hawks that are important also. Their names are utilized in identifying individuals within the indigenous community. So those should be included.
Okay.
And we don't discriminate against the migratory predators, raptors, because they do come and utilize the area, which means they have a great importance or impact in our cultures also.
Okay. All right, so let me read my revision here. So we took out that first sentence about what game birds are being hunted, and we struck that completely. So the new information after that, or which replaces that, reads, the planning area supports a wide variety of bird species, including the band-tailed pigeon and species of traditional importance to the Clatsop Chinook. And I'm going to put a period there. These species, such as ravens, bald eagles, falcons, ospreys, hawks, owls, turkey vultures, and the condor, let me rewrite that, represent the perpetuation of the circle of life. Does that
May
sound
Creator bless you for that.
Thank you.
That's, I think we should say eagles because we have golden eagles as well as bald eagles. So can we just say eagles? Are you okay with that, Dawn?
I'm okay with eagles.
Okay, eagles it is. Okay, so I
And
don't
then
want
at the beginning,
oh, go ahead, Pam.
I want to make sure that we remove sentence that say none of these are considered endangered at this present time.
Okay, so I was gonna take that sentence out and replace it because I can't find my list of endangered species right away. But replace that sentence and say marbled murrelet and other endangered and threatened species are located in this area.
Okay.
Yes, make sure that
spotted owl. Spotted owl.
Okay.
Yeah, or excuse me. Yeah, that would be true. Also, threaten is a good word to put in there. Yes.
Okay, so we'll add the spotted owl after marbled murrelet. Okay, so I don't want to rush our discussion, and as I said, I'm available to stay. I know, Pam, you said you had to leave at noon, and we are at 11:57 now, so how would you like to handle this?
I sent this customer another text and told her I'd be a little bit more delayed. Well, patience, because this is important and I don't want to rush it either. So I'll just keep delaying my meeting with the customer here, and let's continue.
Okay, I'm sorry, but thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else on the fish and wildlife section of the natural resources?
Not I see.
Okay.
So are we on to natural hazards now?
Yes, we are. And so we had said that we were going to cut and paste some of our stuff from Seaside Rural. So let me do that quickly. So we're going to add our general policy about being prepared for 2 weeks. We're going to add that one. And we probably don't need to add the tsunami one, but we will add the ones for the earthquake Cascadia subduction event. So I'll put those in here. All right, so those are added.
The only thing that
Okay.
the Japanese tsunami, the Elsie-Jewell Fire Department was totally unprepared for all the people coming in from the coast to escape a perceived tsunami. So in a sense, the tsunami would affect the area, perhaps. I mean, not the Cascading Subduction Zone event will be so bad, but other smaller events.
Okay, so let's address that, Susanna, when we get to this section that talks about public facilities in the fire district.
Okay.
All right, so let's put that in there. And let's see, we had added some language as well to the narrative. So let me find that language. All right. And actually what we can do is we'll take the tsunami and we'll revise it to say that while a tsunami won't really affect you directly, it will have an impact on emergency services in the area.
Yeah.
Okay, so okay, so I added, we put in tsunami and I changed the narrative to say, while the tsunami will not directly affect the Elsie-Jewell planning area, it will have an impact on emergency services within the area as people evacuate out of the tsunami inundation zones. And then for our earthquake Cascadia subduction event, I think we can use that pretty much verbatim because we want the same issues. Want the CERT training, the self-sufficiency, and the cache areas and assembly points. All right, so
Yeah, that's
okay.
applicable to this area.
Okay, so that's been added in. And then, so for the other natural hazards that we're looking at, we had shoreline erosion, mass movement, obviously rockfall. Susanna had talked about that at our last meeting, and we also had wildfire. So,
Under earthquake, do you also list liquefaction?
I did not put it in here. Do you think, and I'm no geologist, but do you think there would be a risk of liquefaction in this area of the county, Don? Because we can add that in.
I would only think that where there's the wetlands or where there's water, that could be a problem.
Okay.
Definitely camped when I had my well drilled to find that I'm on like 40 feet of gray clay. And I think clay is one of the soils that's very susceptible to liquefaction. I thought we'd hit some sort of bedrock or something much quickly than we did. And he went down for days through layers of wet, sloppy gray clay. So
you're correct on that, Pam. That's a problem here in Astoria. The clay, with the last earthquake that came through here, affected all the houses that had clay under their foundation, produced a lot of cracks. So clay does liquefy.
Okay, thank you. I did not know that. Okay, so I put in a section on liquefaction. and it says liquefaction occurs when saturated soils substantially lose bearing capacity due to ground shaking, causing the soil to behave like a liquid. This in turn causes soils to lose their strength and their ability to support weight. Then there's the Dogami Natural Hazard Risk Report for Clatsop County, conducted in 2018, built upon previous studies by the department, and identified locations within the study area that are comparatively more vulnerable or at greater risk to CSC magnitude 9 earthquake hazard. Because of the liquefaction and landslides, communities and structures on higher ground will likely be islands disconnected from other communities by severed transportation routes. That sound accurate for the area?
I don't know.
Yes,
I think,
that's very well.
and I think the biggest cause of isolation will be the bridges coming down.
Okay. So we'll change liquefaction, comma, landslides, comma, and bridge destruction. Or we'll put bridge collapse.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Now,
What else under our natural hazards?
now, one thing I've brought up to the fire department, but I don't know if anybody's really thought about it, that I think there's a good chance that the Nehalem River might get plugged at the Highway 26 bridge. They put the bridge in there because it's a narrow spot of the river. And if it plugs up, then you would have flooding upriver until it broke through and then flooding downriver. I don't know if it needs to be in here. Probably not, because I think with it earthquake, there's going to be so many issues, but
Well, we do have a section on flood hazards, Susanna. So let's see here. Because that could occur, don't you think, with just a really heavy rainfall? So,
well, we're all waiting for Highway 103 to fall into the river at that bridge.
all right, let's see. So at the end of our first paragraph under flooding, which is at the beginning of the natural hazards section, we had added discussion about flooding on Highway 103 during heavy rain events, and then we talk about what happened in 1996. So we want to put upstream. Go ahead, Don.
I'm going to say that Highway 26 bridge is if it hasn't been retrofitted with things to keep it earthquake safe, is definitely coming down. If there's a good significant earthquake, a magnitude 8 or 9 will definitely bring that sucker down. And then Susanna will have a point in that it will block the rivers and cause upstream flooding.
Okay. All right. So let me think. Hold on. I got to put a thought together here. On Highway. Okay. Turn. Okay. So under that first.
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead, Susanna.
Well, you start that last sentence, upstream and downstream flooding at the Highway 26 bridge. It doesn't, I don't think it normally floods there. But the Highway 103 there is part of a mass movement, earth movement area, and it's definitely slumping and dropping, and Highway 103 probably will end up in the river one of these days. I'm surprised it hasn't, it's moving faster than it was, but it's still there.
And while we're on this pretty major correction, the sentence that starts with highway and several local roads can be flooded during heavy rain. The next sentence is not correct. The flood of 96 was in February. It was February of 1996. And then the last sentence, it wasn't just the Vine Maple Bridge that flooded. Actually, a landslide down on Lower Nehalem Road at Charlie Point blocked the Nehalem River, created a river tsunami that washed away 2 homes, and then eventually caused a log jam against the Shanima Bridge. And that bridge then failed, and the residents on the other side of the river lived, I think, for almost 2 years with no vehicular access to Shanima. So it wasn't just the Vine Maple Bridge, it was the Shanima Bridge was completely destroyed.
Okay. So Shanima is SHA-NE-MAH. How do I spell Shanima? Anyone?
It looks close enough.
Okay. All right, we'll go with that. Okay, so I changed the February, the dates to February, and then I put in what you said, Pam. So I left in the Vine Maple Bridge, but then I added a landslide on Lower Nehalem Road, blocked the Nehalem River, which washed away 2 residences and caused a log jam that destroyed the Shanima Bridge. Whoa, whoa, whoa. What did I do? Okay, sorry.
Do you still need
Download.
that? How does the Shanima
Yeah,
spelling?
yeah.
Web map says SHA-NE-MAH.
All right, we rock. Okay, we got it. Thank you. Okay, so is that, are those revisions good for you, Pam?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. All right. What else have we got here under our natural areas? That was the flood. Do we have anything else for our flood section? Okay, how about, let's see, up next is shoreline erosion.
Back to the flood section just for a second.
Oh.
I think the very first sentence, stream flooding in the Elsie-Jewell area is much less severe. Having lived through 96 here, I have a real problem with that. It may occur less frequently, but in 96 it was extremely severe. And maybe I'm just nitpicky, but it was beyond severe, pretty much for the whole length of the Nehalem River, from Vernonia all the way down to the town of Nehalem at the coast.
Okay, so
Could we say less frequent?
Yes, so let's say stream flooding in the Elsie-Jewell planning area does not occur as frequently as in the low flat coastal areas in the, let's delete you, areas,
better about
comma,
that.
but, commas, but can be just as severe. So I think we want to have that too. So it'll say now stream flooding in the Elsie-Jewell planning area does not occur as frequently as in the low flat coastal and estuary areas, but can be just as severe.
Can I interject in there?
Sure.
I would say that the population disturbance of flooding in the Jewel Elsie area is hugely impacted. I mean, none of us could move for I forgot how many days in 96. You can't go anywhere. The whole population is impacted pretty much. So I don't know how you'd
So
want to work.
we can add a sentence that says flood events disrupt. Would you say it's all the population, most of the population?
I would say severe flood events affect most of the population. Does that sound right, Pam?
I don't know. They can. How about a significant portion of the population?
Okay.
Okay.
And
Got it.
did you put in severe flood events?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on flood?
We should probably move on from there to me.
Okay. What about shoreline erosion?
I defer to Pam on that.
The rivers change course almost every year. I've been here almost 35 years, and Humbug Creek changes course a lot, and there's a lot of erosion. That first sentence, the natural shore has been altered. I'm not sure. I don't know how we define altered. Like, does that mean somebody coming in with a bulldozer and physically changing it, or does it mean changes from year to year as the river cuts away at one bank or the other?
I think that, well, where rivers bend.
I mean, I would almost like to just sentence and just start that paragraph with shoreline erosion is a natural process.
All right, we can do that. Done.
But my question is shoreline referring more to ocean rather than riverbank?
No, not in this case, because
Okay.
there is obviously no ocean shoreline in the Elsie-Jewell planning area.
Mhm.
Should we put title, the heading be river bank erosion? Would that be more appropriate? Because when I first read this, I almost skipped over it because my mind defaulted to shoreline being ocean. And maybe that's just in my limited frame of reference.
Okay, so let's change shoreline. Let's call it stream and riverbank erosion.
Yes.
like that. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, anything else on
And the last,
erosion?
yeah, the last sentence there, moderate erosion causes some loss of land or interference with aquatic habitats through, well, I guess it's fine this way. I was thinking of when the shoreline erodes, trees fall in and shade is gone, which increases the stream temperature for the salmon, and it also creates sedimentation. But I think this is fine the way it is. I think that last sentence is fine. So,
Okay,
sorry, we can move on.
all right.
Make one
Overthink.
planning and stream bank is just policy to protect stream banks.
I'm sorry, Susanna, I didn't catch the beginning of your question.
Well, I think on the policy level, there might be, if there's not policy that protects stream banks from erosion.
All right, let me check on that. Yeah, we do not have a policy on stream bank erosion. So what would you like your policy to say, Susanna?
Oh, hadn't thought about it. Just, I don't know, that development recognizes stream bank erosion and the need for stream stabilization through proper, and you could put indigenous plants, not indigenous, native plants for stabilization, the use of that. Pam, do you want to comment?
If I could make my proper words, yes. Again, keeping it to a broad objective. Riverbank erosion shall be considered, or preventing bank erosion shall be considered in all planning decisions. That's probably not really good, but I'm trying to give a broad overarching statement or goal that can then be applied later on a case-by-case scenario.
Right.
Something like that work?
Yeah, so what I'm, hold on here, shall be considered during the permitting process. Okay, so what I put as our policy is prevention of stream and riverbank erosion caused by development shall be considered during the permitting process.
Right, and would we
I'm
need to
wondering if
about bank stabilization with vegetation?
Yep, let's make that a separate one. So we'll add policy 2. The county shall encourage the use of native vegetation to stabilize stream and river banks. Okay, did everybody catch that? I was
Yeah.
type talking.
Yes, that's good. That's
Okay.
good.
So going back up, anything else under stream and riverbank erosion?
I don't think so.
Okay. How about mass movement?
I have to get back out there and look at that. Just a second.
Okay.
I'm trying to get ready to go to my appointment at the same time, so I keep walking away from the screen here. Mass movement.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah.
That I think impactful major mass movement, it's not just mostly forest areas, designated forest lands. When I think about Highway 103 falling in the road into the river, because of our geology, there's a lot of mass movement areas. And I just wouldn't say the major one. I mean, we have mostly forest land, so yes, most of it is forested areas because most of it's forest lands, but the impactful mass movements are not going to be in the forest land. Highway 26 is falling apart east of Elderberry Inn, slumping. Yeah, there's
So major areas of mass movement are mostly forested areas, designated forest lands, but where they interface with residential use or transportation corridors, it can be highly impactful.
Yeah.
All right, can you repeat that again? I made a change, and while you were talking, Pam, I missed your change. So the change I made was in that first sentence after subject to mass movement, I added a period, took out the comma, and then made the second sentence read, while the majority of this area is in the forested interior, both Highway 26 and Highway 103 are subject to mass movement events. And then Pam, what was you had some language about residential impacts?
I was hang on to the second sentence. Major areas of mass movements are mostly forested areas designated forest land, comma. I lost what I said, but it was something like mass movement can be impactful when it intersects residential areas and transportation, or just roads. We don't have to be fancy. Roads. And we shouldn't really limit it to 106. I mean, Lower Nehalem Road has a lot of issues. Grinnell Road has issues. It's all the roads out here, due to the topography, are subject to mass movement, usually caused by forestry operation uphill. But when that mass movement comes down, it does affect the transportation corridors and sometimes homes.
Okay, so in the new second sentence I created, let's revise it to say, while the majority of the area is in the forested interior, roads and residences are impacted by mass movement events. And then in the new, what will become the third sentence that talks about designated for conservation or forest lands, we've got a sentence that follows it that says these areas allow other low intensity uses. And I think we should take out the rest of that sentence and change it to say such as dwellings, schools, and small scale commercial activities. Because we do have in those areas, Jewell School is partially in a slide zone. Probably some of those businesses on 202 are probably in a slide zone. So do these changes make sense? Should I read the whole thing from the beginning, the whole paragraph?
Can I ask for another change?
Oh,
Yeah.
go ahead.
The sentence before that says, mass movement, mostly forested areas, designated forest lands, and period. And then these areas allow low density uses. I don't think that follows. Does it? From forest lands to these areas allow?
I think you are right. I mean, there are some, you can build a house theoretically on forest land, but most of the houses and businesses aren't on forest land. So
Maybe mass movement areas allow other low density uses?
I think I would put it the other way around. So say other low intensity uses such as blah, blah, blah are also located within mass movement areas.
Sounds good.
Okay, got it.
You want the whole thing read now, Pam?
No, I'm fine. I'm just scrolling the rest of Elsie-Jewell, and there's a lot to get through. I'm particularly interested in the wildfire part, but I'm going to have to go, and I'm feeling very torn here. I hate to go, and I don't want to rush the process.
Can you let
quite a few pages?
just
Quite a few
give us-
pages to get through.
Yeah, but can you just give us your major concerns?
Well, let's do this because I don't
Yeah.
want to rush this either. And in fairness to your group, you have had 2 community plans to review where all the other ones have only had 1. So if everybody is okay, we can schedule one more meeting just to go over what's left in Elsie-Jewell. And we can either do that if people would have some time this month, like maybe next week or I know the week after, I think we're getting into Christmas then, or immediately after the new year, because your plan is going to go tentatively.
Let's wrap up.
I'm sorry, Pam?
Oh, sorry. No, go ahead.
Because we were going to take your plan for the board work session on February 16th. So we have a little bit of time in January to play with if we want to do it in early January. Otherwise, I can look at a date for next week if we want to wrap it up next week. Because I don't want to
do
rush
it next week. Well, this is fresh. Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that opportunity because there's still some stuff to get through to finish up this plan. If anybody else has time next week, that would be great. I tend to lose momentum in the thought process when the meetings are too far apart. If we can schedule it next week, this will still be really fresh on my mind.
Next week will
what's
be fine
everybody's
for me.
schedule? Week.
Okay. Do you want to do it again on a Friday? You want to do it on Monday? My schedule's fairly open next week, so I have some flexibility.
My schedule is open next week.
I'm good Tuesday, Thursday, or Friday. If it's 10 to noon again.
Okay, Pam, how about you?
If it's 10 till noon, I have to leave for my office by about 1 o'clock each day. So any morning would be fine. What works for you, Gail?
Everyone except Tuesday, Wednesday. So should we shoot for Thursday the 16th, or you want to keep it on Friday, which would be the 17th?
I'd probably say
It would
Thursday.
be great.
Thursday?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Thursday from 10 to noon it is. I'll send out a meeting invite, and we'll just work off the same
Perfect.
materials that we had for today's meeting.
And just start
Okay,
where
good.
we left. I appreciate that. Thank you. So since we're wrapping this up, I guess I should see if just still no members of the public here for input. So any closing comments, or shall we just adjourn for now?
Adjourn.
We can
Adjourn. All right.
All right.
Talk to you, Gail, for a second.
Yeah, I will. Let me stop the recording. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Okay.